Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's program, the latest presentation in the Commonwealth Coast Conference Student Athlete Development Series. I am extremely excited about tonight's special guest, Andrea Gosper, a former CCC softball student athlete at the University of New England, who is now part of the scouting department with the National Football League's Buffalo Bills. While a member of the Nor'easter softball team, Andrea was a two-year captain and a three-time All-CCC selection by the conference's head coaches. She graduated with a degree in health science with minors in nutrition and coaching. As a senior at UNE, Andrea served as an intern coach for the Nor'easter football team, putting in more than 500 hours of work as a member of the coaching staff, preparing her to earn one of 40 spots at the NFL's Women's Career in Football Forum. She has since gone on to earn a scouting internship with the Buffalo Bills, the organization she has been with since June of 2019. And the Bills are enjoying a resurgence as they won 10 games a year ago, their highest win total since 1999, good for a second playoff spot in 3 years. And the team currently sits at 5-2 in first place in the AFC East. Let's welcome someone I enjoyed watching a bunch the past 4 years, and someone I am really happy to have joining us, Andrea Gosper.
Thanks for having me on.
We are so excited to have you with us, and we're really looking forward to learning a lot about your story. But before we start walking down your career path, we wanted to share a video that you have proudly pinned atop your Twitter profile that provides some great insight into the amazing women that are part of your Bills family, including their owner and president, Kim Pegula, who is really a very, very fascinating person. So Doug, to get that video rolling for everybody to check out.
A group of men and women in that locker room. I just want to get that out, man. I'll tell you what, I'm so proud of that group. On the road, in the division, down like we were, momentum certainly not in our favor for most of the game, and just what a blessing to be a part of that group in there.
So my title is Coordinator of Player Services. I'm a sports scientist.
I work in college scouting. I'm an offensive coaching intern with the Bills. I played when I was a kid. I played when I was 9 and 10. And then going into high school, I tried to play again and was told no, that they were not ready to have a female. I started coaching in high school a few years ago and kind of thought that was going to be the cap for me. Eventually got involved in the Women's Careers in Football Forum that was put on by the NFL. And I met Coach McDermott, and he had offered an opportunity to come and shadow for a couple days if that was something I was interested in. And when I followed up with that, he kind of countered the offer and said, why don't you come and intern for training camp?
So I'm from just south of London in England, and my background was working as a sports scientist in soccer. And then when the opportunity arose to come over to Buffalo, initially to start working in hockey, I jumped at the chance of trying a different sport. And likewise then, when I got the opportunity to come over to the Bills and start working in football, it just seemed like a really exciting opportunity in a very forward-thinking organization that I didn't want to turn down.
We have a dietitian, scouting, equipment. We have several in the training room. Our sports science, and she's from England, coaching and football operations. We had several during camp, and we have one for the season. And then player engagement. We're looking for the best ones, and maybe at some point we run across one for strength or and/or the video department.
I went to school at University of New England. We established a coaching minor. So my professor, we were just talking about what kind of sport I would like to work with, said why don't you just do football? So my pathway to the NFL changed, but my overall goal was always to be here.
As we all know, football is a hard sport to get into. We want to hire the best. We want to hire people that can help us win. And so when they see women in these positions, it's because they are the best person for that job.
Especially having Kim as an owner, they're very progressive. I think they're not just progressive with women, I think they're progressive across the board with diversity. And I know Sean's been a key aspect in helping with that diversity with the start of Phoebe and then bringing Callie in.
We have normalized the culture here. I mean, I think ultimately you don't stand out and you're like, oh, the Bills have a lot of women in these football-specific roles. You don't think that. You say, LY's really good at her job. Joe's really good at her job. That's all it is. These are the best people for the position, and that's what it is. It just happens to be a great group of women in the same building. When I was young, women didn't coach, and it was hard to envision yourself in that role. Whereas now what we're doing for young girls is being able to say, like, this is a career profession. This is something you can pursue. It's not just a dream, it's attainable.
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a trailblazer. People have done that before me. I'm stepping in, I'm continuing the trend.
Just so lucky to be in an organisation that does treat people like family. Coach McDermott always reiterates that here we are a family, and you do get that feeling.
They all fit the roles perfectly. As I watch the interaction with our players, they are all very well accepted, both in the player, coaches, business side. Everybody accepts them because they're professionals at what they do.
If you have people all from the same background, I think you miss different perspectives, different ideals, different experiences that people have had along the way.
Working across different countries, across different teams and different sports. I do believe that the NFL is at the forefront of being diverse and having women in roles that they deserve to be in.
My hope is that we get to a point where the culture is so welcoming that women are no longer intimidated to try and take that step. That's where I hope we can get.
Okay, that's wonderful. I've seen that a couple times, and I've enjoyed it every time I've had an opportunity to look at it. Andy, before we spend some time learning about your career path, your current job responsibilities, and where you plan to go, let's just spend a little bit of time learning about the composition of an NFL scouting department and what they do. To an outsider, I think of college scouting and pro scouting and game preparation, but I'm sure there's a lot more. Share with us the way the department is set up and the various responsibilities of the staff.
Yeah, so every college department, personnel department is different per team. So for us, at the top, we have our general manager. And then right below him, we have our assistant general manager. And then then we have our director of player personnel. And then from there on, we split off. So then we have the pro side and the college side. So then on our pro side, we have a director of pro scouting, and then we have 3 pro scouts and 1 scouting assistant. And then on the college side, we have our director of college scouting, and then we have 2 national scouts, 6 area scouts, a Blesto scout, and me. So we have a lot of people in the building, but we are considered one of the smaller scouting staffs. So on the pro side, basically they're in charge of anybody once they get drafted and they're on a team, that's the pro side. So they deal with not only our current roster, but also all the other rosters across the other 31 teams. So they'll evaluate our own roster, grade our guys per game, give them game grades. They'll write reports on all the guys throughout the league. That way we can go back to those grades for free agency. The pro scouts are all assigned a team for their advances. So advances means that they'll go. So for example, we're playing the Patriots this week. So last week we went to, our advanced scout went to the Patriots game. They looked at personnel groupings, play calling tendencies, alignments, and then they'll come back, they'll write the report, and they'll share it with all the coaches and be an assistant for the coaches if they have any questions. And they'll also work with our analytics guys. They're constantly talking to agents about players who are on the street. So if we have an injury, we know we have our ready list going. We know who's on the street, who's available, who can we get on a flight this minute and bring them in for tomorrow morning to be in the building ready to go. And then on the college side, so the college starts with anybody who's draft eligible. So that would be redshirt sophomores and up. The guys will watch film, they'll go to school calls. So school calls is when you just go to school, you visit with a pro liaison, academic advisors, coaches, strength coaches, ATs, and you're basically getting background information and stuff like how are they mentally, how did they grow up, what are they like as a person, not necessarily as a player. They'll grade the players, say how they would fit on our roster. And for the all-star games, combine, they'll meet with the player and get interviews, maybe have some follow-up questions that they learned from the school calls. And then once we get all of our information, all the grades are in, we have 2 sets of meetings. So in December, we have our background meetings, and that's just about the player themselves, not about the football player. This is about the person. And then come February, that's when we have our meetings about the player themselves. And then through those meetings, we'll combine all the information, and that's how we create our draft board.
Now, are you exposed to all areas of scouting or just one area in particular? And is that, is there a particular area that you really like best out of all that?
So I'm involved with all the college side, but with the pro side, I'm there if they ever need me, if they ever need any assistance, I'm there. I'll sit in on all the pro meetings. And I know when I first started, I made sure I went up to all the pro scouts and I asked them, give me the best players at every position throughout the league. And then, so that's how I started. So I watched all those guys. I watched their film, wrote notes on them, because when I'm watching college film, I'm projecting them into the league. So having a good starting point for how these players should be and what we're looking for really helped me out. But yeah, I love the college side. I think it's so fun to know the player inside and out and try to see how they would be in the league and also how they would impact our team if we draft them.
Now, on the college side, are you literally looking at everybody that's playing at the Division I level? How far down do you go? What determines who you're looking at as you start, navigating the landscape of who might be available for either the draft or for free agency?
Yeah, so we'll look at all levels. So Ben Barch, he was a D3 player from last year. So D3, Lenore Ryan, Kyle Duggar, Patriots. He's D2. So we look at all divisions, any guy that's standing out, that's the best of their best. We have a smaller school guy on our team right now. But yeah, so just anybody who's draft eligible, redshirt sophomore. So in the summer, the pool of guys is very big. And then as the years go on, as the months go on, some will declare for the draft and some will stay back and finish their years. So basically the guys who are coming out as redshirt sophomores are the ones who are absolutely stand out, who would make into league, probably a first round pick. Normally if they're not a first round pick, they'll stay a couple years and then try to get up to the first rounders.
Sounds great. Now let's kind of change pace a little bit and let's go back to the very beginning. You grew up in Rhode Island, probably a Bills fan from birth, right?
No, I was a Patriots fan, grew up obviously New England. But knowing where I am now, realizing that whenever we played the Bills or honestly anybody in the division, I was always on edge because winning a division game is hard. So it's cool to be a fan on one team in the division and now working for another team in the division.
Absolutely. Now talk about how your interest in sports began and the sports that you played growing up.
So I've always played sports. Sports have been a center of my family. I played soccer up until college, and then I played softball, obviously through college, like we said. I skied and later switched over to snowboarding. I have a sister who's 5 years older than me. She played the exact same sports I played. And I like to say that I was the athlete I am because I was trying to keep up with somebody who's so much older than me.
Did you ever think about playing football when you were growing up?
Actually, no. The only time we would play is if Thanksgiving, we would play football out in the street, throw it around on the beach. But yeah, it actually never occurred to me to even try.
What ended up bringing you to UNE? And also when you got to UNE, what was your career plan at that stage?
So what brought me to UNE was softball ultimately. I remember going on many recruiting visits, and UNE just stuck out to me. It had the best facilities, and little did I know that it was going to get better as the years went on. I grew up in Rhode Island and had a beach house in New Jersey, so the beach was always a part of my life. So having a campus that was right on the water was a positive. My best friend from high school was also looking at UNE. She wanted to swim there. So that was good. And then I think I visited the campus every season just to make sure I liked it. So, because obviously it's very different in the winter than it is in the summer. So made sure to visit, and I mean, I loved it. It was perfect. And then I came in actually as an athletic training major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then my sophomore year, nutrition became a major. So I switched into that. And then from there, I changed my major again to health science. And then I decided to put nutrition as my minor. And then I picked up the coaching minor. So I had 3 majors.
Wow. How about that? Nothing like trying some different things and finding the path that works for you. Now, when I look back, UNE announced right at the end of 2014 that the university would be adding football for 2017. When you were a first-year student in the fall of 2015, the football program hadn't yet begun competition. If I recall, there was a 2-year process to build the program. The coaches came on board in 2016 to start recruiting. Do you remember having any thoughts about what football was going to bring to the university and how it might impact you as a student athlete?
Yeah, so I was super excited about this announcement. Football was one thing we were missing, so I was wicked excited that we got this. But when it was announced, plans went immediately into place to expand the forum. So all athletes have benefited from the addition of the football team. We got a bigger strength conditioning room, a bigger AT room, new laundry room, storage room, more locker rooms, so we don't have to move out every season. And then the university also gained classrooms and lecture halls through them. And then me as a softball athlete, I played on 4 fields in my 4 years playing for UNE.
Yeah.
So I was excited to finally have a permanent home, even though it was my senior year. And it just so happened to be a part of the football field.
Now, the football program, in terms of competition, they started playing a JV schedule in 2017 before they started playing in 2018, which was your senior year. So you were an intern coach for that first year of varsity play. How did you get involved with the football program?
So sophomore year is when I picked up the coaching minor. And with that, you have to do an internship. So I remember talking to Professor Hawk, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Softball was the obvious choice, but I couldn't because they only play in the spring, and obviously that's when my season was. So talking to her, I told her I didn't want to do anything in the spring because that's when my season was. And then we also had a shorter fall season. So we were going back and forth, and she just said, "What about football? Since it's new, why don't you try that?" And I love football, so I thought that was an awesome idea. A couple weeks later, I met with Coach Lichten, and we talked about what his goals and visions were for the first year for the program and how I could come on and all my roles that I would be able to do.
Now, I remember going to the program's first varsity game at Coast Guard, and that first varsity team won its first game 3 games into the season. It was in the program's first ever conference game. What was that like as a part of the staff? And how did the first year football experience compare as someone like yourself, whose softball teams won 77 games over 4 years and never failed to make the CCC tournament?
I remember telling someone this, that I have never been so genuinely happy for a group of people before. I was there since training camp, meeting with the guys their first time, even putting their jersey in the locker room. So it was awesome just to see them finally get that win. And then from them on the field to the guys on the sideline to the crowd up in the stands, like you would have thought we won the title. It was insane. I will never forget that moment. I know that it was a last second field goal against Curry, and that will stick with me forever.
One of those "where were you when" moments that will always bond you to everybody who was on the team, and probably everybody who was at the university at that point. What was your role as an intern coach?
So I did a lot, and I will say, I now know like that's one of the best things about working for a D3 program is that obviously smaller budgets than the D1s. So your staff has to be involved in all areas of the game. So I did everything from program admin, organized recruits information. I gave tours. I would run upstairs at halftime and I would intercut the game film and help with practice film after practice. I gave out uniforms. I would do inventory of apparel on every Tuesday for a while. On field, I would observe with all the linebackers. I caught a couple punts during special teams. I actually broke my finger doing it. But yeah, I did a lot. And being around here, coaches will always tell all of our interns that come in, the more you can do, the better. We can find somebody who can do one thing, but having experience in multiple areas of the game is what's going to get you stuck here. You'll be here if you can do more than one thing.
Great advice. And I think that probably applies to just about any career that somebody may be considering. You want to be that versatile person who can tackle any task that might be at hand. Now, shortly after that season, you were selected as one of 40 people to attend the NFL Women's Career in Football Forum. How did you hear about that, and what was the process to get selected?
So I actually never heard of it until I got the email. I remember saw the NFL popped up on my UNE email and I went to click it and I never heard of the forum. So I actually brought my computer to Coach Lichten and I said, "Is this spam?" And he goes, like, "Click it." So I clicked it and it just said that we want you to attend. And they kind of gave me a synopsis of everything, but I still don't know how they found me. The only thing I can think of is that through articles that were written about me and through people sharing them on social media, that it got the league's attention. So thank you for anybody who shared it.
That's great. Where was that held?
It was in Indianapolis. So it was
Okay.
a couple days right before the combine.
Mhm.
So when I went to the combine this past year, the forum was going on. So it was really cool, kind of doing like a full circle thing.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine that the folks there, probably people from all different walks of life, D1, D3, other areas. What did you learn and who did you meet?
Yeah, so the women invited were ranged from D1 to high school coaches and high school coaches who were also math teachers. So strength and conditioning coaches were there as well. So it was a wide range of people. It was a very personal event since it was only 40 women there. I got to listen to different group panels such as head coaches, which Sean McDermott, the Buffalo Bills head coach, was there. So that's really cool. General managers and women already in the league was part of the big panels. And then I got to pick a few breakout sessions. So I chose the scouting one and the coaching one. So in the scouting one, Phoebe, who was the former Bills coaching intern, was speaking on that one. And then during the coaching breakout session, Kaye, who was our coaching intern last year, she was speaking in that one. So it turns out that I met a lot of people who I was going to see in my professional career here with Buffalo. And then during breaks and lunch, we got to interact with them even more. So I met Roger Goodell. We talked about how he has a house in Maine. So that was really cool. But to this day, I still keep in contact with a lot of people that I met.
Very, very cool. That's tremendous. Doug, it looks like we got a question from the audience.
Yeah, I think this is something that came up a lot when we were taking questions during registration. And obviously we kind of touched on it with that video that we showed at the beginning, but can you just talk about your experience as a woman? Obviously this was a program used to try and get more women involved in traditionally male-dominated field and sport.
So starting with UNE, I had never felt different. Coach Lichten brought me in. It starts from the top. So it started with him accepting me, him giving me the same roles he was giving everybody else. There was no special treatment. His expectation was the same for me as it was for everybody else, and it trickled down. And then I came over to Buffalo, and it's the same way. So I've never had the experience of being treated differently, getting different jobs because I'm a female. So I've been very lucky to be a part of 2 amazing programs and organizations that doesn't care about gender. It doesn't matter what gender you are. They're gonna give you the same exact stuff. They're gonna have the same exact expectations. So it's been great.
Yeah, I think obviously the organizations that you're involved in has a lot to do with that. And also you touched on how this program helped you just build a network. Can you just explain a little bit more about your networking that helped you land your current position?
So before I went to the forum, I had no idea what networking was. I was way behind the 8 ball. I went to the forum and everybody knew everybody, and I was just sitting there because I didn't know anybody. So the forum actually taught me. We had one of the panel speakers told us about networking. So connecting with anybody you meet, any speaker you hear from, email them, thank them, tell them something that they said that impacted you. And then that's how you create your network tree. So for example, a girl who I sat next to at the forum, she ended up getting hired with the Bills as well. She came from Northwestern and now she's at Georgia. So just think of all those connections from that one person. So it's crazy how much networking works. So get on it now because I didn't start until it was almost too late.
Now, talking about, the other women who are involved in the NFL, earlier this year, the Cleveland-Washington game, it drew a lot of attention. Both teams had a woman on the coaching staff. Kelly Bronson, who we saw in the video, who we've talked about, is with the Browns. Jennifer King is with Washington, and Sarah Thomas, who I think is also one of the better NFL officials, were on the crew. What are your thoughts about that?
It was a great moment. It shows just how far women in the NFL have come. And it was awesome that the networks were highlighting that. I know Callie very well. As I've said before, she was here with Buffalo. We both had our first year here. It's great to see them succeeding. And I did see that today, the media card, Sarah's hat and her flag and her whistle, and a picture of all 3 of them are now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame on a display case. So that's really cool to see.
Now, as you speak with those other women working in the NFL, while it's certainly tremendous that qualified people are getting long overdue and long deserved opportunities, what's the feeling among you and your peers about it being news when women are involved in the game, as opposed to something that just needs to become a normal occurrence?
Yeah, so I can only speak for myself with this. But we're waiting for a time where we don't have to talk about working in a male-dominant field because it's a new normal. We're waiting for our gender to be kept out of a hiring announcement. And we're waiting for there to never be a first female hire at a position in our field again. But with saying that, I understand that right now it's necessary to talk about it because there's so few of us in the league. I can name a handful of scouts that are females right off the bat, and on one hand, that's it for 32 teams. It never actually clicked to me that I could be a role model to other women and little girls. I was sitting at the combine during weigh-ins one day and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around and I thought I was sitting in somebody else's seat. So I was like, hi. And the guy just said, thank you. And I was like, oh, for what? And he said, I have a daughter, and you being here is showing her that she can do whatever she wants to do. So we took a picture so he could show her. And it was the first time that I realized that it's not just about who I see in the room, but it's about being a symbol that times are changing in our field. And in elementary school, which is how old his daughter was, when a teacher asks what you want to be, girls can say, oh, I want to be a football coach, or I want to work in football, because they can physically see it being done. And it's going to take some time, but we're going to get there, and we're already starting it.
That's powerful stuff. I know what it's like when someone comes up to me and just says something that, you know, makes you take a step back. And this is on a whole different plane. So I think that really is cool. Going back to the video that we saw, Kim Pagula, one of the co-owners who we heard from, she's an amazing story. Abandoned as a child in South Korea, came to the US at the age of 5. Talk about being a part of the Bills organization and the culture from the top down with a woman at the helm. And I'm also curious what interaction, if any, you've had with her.
Yeah, so she is wicked approachable. I remember at training camp, we talked about Holy Donut, which is a donut shop in Maine. She knew all about Holy Donuts and how they're made from potatoes. So we were talking about that for a while. She's so approachable. She loves to bake. So she'll come in with all of her cookies and all of her recipes that she loves to make us. So it's great. And, you know, Bills have always been in the forefront of change and working towards a new normal of having women around, set a precedent for other teams. And it starts with ownership. So having a female at the top sets the tone.
Right. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit. You know, the career form's over. You start thinking about, okay, graduation's going to come. What's going through your mind at that point?
So the forum was in February. So I had probably been a couple weeks to a month into my season. And then in March for spring break, we go down to Florida for spring training. So I was getting ready for that. And it was also my senior year. So doing all that, focus on graduating, picking my schedule for grad school. And I was looking for a house up in Maine with a couple friends.
Then how did the opportunity with the Bills end up coming along?
So during the last panel, I remember getting a text from one of the women who ran the forum, put it together, and just said, hey, the general manager and assistant general manager of the Buffalo Bills would like to talk to you. Are you interested? So I texted back, be like, absolutely, let me know when. In the back of my mind, I thought about my flight back to Maine because it was right after the forum, but I was like, it's fine, we'll figure it out once we meet with them. So I met with Brandon Bean, who's our general manager, and Joe Shane, who's our assistant general manager. And we talked for around 30 minutes, not really an interview where I just listed off my resume, but they wanted to hear my story. They wanted to hear me talk and my experiences of working in football. And we left it at April 1st. I'll hear if they want to bring me on. And I remember I was playing in a softball game and I felt my watch vibrate. So I looked down and it says Joe Shane. I was like, oh my gosh. So I couldn't answer it. So then after the game, I called him back and he said, yeah, we want to bring you on for a year-long internship with the scouting department. Take the weekend, think about it, get back to me. And I said, no, I'll just take it. He goes, oh, do you want to think about it? I was like, no, I'll accept it right here. And he goes, all right. So
I know you graduate in May, so we'll see you the first week of June. And then hung up and Mom, Dad, I'm going to Buffalo.
That's great. That's just like, it's like getting picked in the NFL draft. That is wonderful. So you get to Buffalo. What's a typical day like for you? I'm sure it can change depending upon the time of the year, but what's your average day like?
Yeah, so it's always changing. So just to keep it general, in the season, I'll normally come in at 5:30 in the morning, but because of COVID and daily COVID testing this year, we pushed it back to 7. So I'll come in the mornings, I'll get all my admin work done. So that's talking to the scouts, getting their schedules put together for the week. Where are they going to be? What games do they want to see? I'll email my contacts at schools just to get information, especially with COVID policies. You have to be on the schools and know all their policies so we don't break any rules. And then I'll use practice as my break and transition period. So I practice talking to the players. I'll control the music, the clock, the crowd noise when we're in the stadium. And then after practice, I'll come in. And then if I get all my admin work done, that's when I'll watch my film, write reports on guys. And then once our season's done, we all transition into draft mode. So I'll spend my days making sure all of our prospects' information's up to date. And I'll make sure everybody's grades are in on time, put together our meeting books, draft books, all-star game books, and just make sure that we're good to go. There's no hiccups for when we have our meetings. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I will say when the season ends, my days do get longer and get more hectic.
Sure. Absolutely. Do you have any interaction with the coaching staff or the players?
Yeah, so the players, so I see the players all the time. We're a very close organization. I'll see them in between meetings, walking around in the weight room, at practice, talk to them, see how they're doing in between drills. And then normally we get to eat with them, but because of COVID this year, they separated us. So we have different CAFs this year. A few of the players live in my neighborhood, so I see them out and about all the time. And then for the coaches, I'll see them at practice, see them in the hallways. I have to walk past all their offices to get to mine. And then I mainly work with the coaches after the season when we're going over the combine and draft stuff. So I'll assist them in any prospect background that they need, any stats that they need, any of their lists of players that they need to contact. So they'll do interviews with players and they'll talk to agents as well. So I'm basically assisting them in any way they need, anything that possible that they could need. I'll get it for them.
Staying on the coaching side of things, I know that you've coached youth teams. Obviously, we've talked about college age athletes. You're getting experience at the professional level, and I've always felt that if someone can coach, they can coach. From your experiences, any similarities as you compare coaching at all the different levels you've been exposed to?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it's all about the love of the game. They all want to win. They all want to do their best for themselves, for their team, for their family. At the youth age, it's all about building their foundation as an athlete, how they think as an athlete. And then as they get older, it's all about refining those skills. And then ultimately at the pro level, it's combining the best of the best to make the ultimate team and then make a Super Bowl run.
I've always been a real big fan of Coach Mike Lichten since he came to UNE 4 years ago. I've always marveled at what it must have been like for a competitive person to not have games, as was the case in his first year at UNE. It kind of reminds me of the scenes in We Are Marshall, which obviously was a completely different set of circumstances. But talk about Coach Lichten, your thoughts on what you learned at UNE and his approach to bringing you on board his staff? I know you talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so I remember before I was even with the team, being in the forum and seeing him walk back and forth between his office and other places. And I remember saying to myself, does he ever smile? He's always serious faced. He's always on a mission, walking around. But he's been an amazing coach and he's been an amazing mentor to me. I would not be where I am without him. He expects perfection with himself, and it goes down to his coaches and to his players. He expected a lot out of me, and it helped prepare me for this, what I'm doing now at the professional level. I owe him so much, and he built my foundation, and the Bills are now building upon the knowledge that I gained from UNE.
We've got a surprise for you. Joining us is UNE head football coach Mike Lichten. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks, Gregg. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you having me.
Are you smiling?
Mike, share your perspective on how Andy came to work with the program. I know we've heard her side of the story, but what can you tell us?
Sure. Well, first, I can't believe you're wearing watches and answering emails in the middle of competition. So obviously I didn't do that great of a job when you focused, but there's always room to improve for sure. But, we were fortunate enough to have Professor Katie Hawk begin a coaching minor program at UNE, which with the ambition of getting young people and students involved in the coaching profession, whether it's supplemented another profession they have or their main focus. And we've had a long string of really talented and bright interns since the minor has begun. And Andrea, was one of our first guinea pigs, and she's done an incredible job. Obviously since leaving UNE, but while she was here, she set the bar very high in terms of her work ethic and the expectation from not only the academic side of things, but just a love of making the place that she's at better each day. And that's kind of the expectation on our staff. So the coaching minor here is a real bright spot for us. And that's mainly true because of the people who make up the student body that are involved in it.
Now, you've seen a lot of people break in to coaching. You've seen a lot of student athletes that maybe move on to different kinds of careers. What makes the successful people become just that? And how does Andy typify that blueprint?
Yeah, I think it kind of starts with work ethic, and it starts with being able to put the group of people that you're responsible to and for ahead of yourself. And being a selfless person is a huge part of being a coach, being a teacher, being a mentor. Andrea was natural at that from the very moment she got here. And I could tell that she was going to have some longevity in athletics because she was always looking to do more, always wondering what more of a positive effect she could have on the program. And you can always tell that the ones who are going to last a long time because they don't want to go home. They don't want to call it a day. They don't want to submit their timesheet. They want to find something else they can do to push you forward. And the other thing she possesses is the ability to think on her feet, to be adaptable. No task too big or too small. She wouldn't know how to do something, but we'd assign it to her anyway, knowing that she'd find a way to figure it out. And that's essential. So, a lot of those intangibles are what makes people good coaches, good front office people, good scouts, just great people to be around in athletics. And as our football family has grown, we have a lot more people like that around each day. And a part of that is attributed to her and her efforts.
Mike, what would you tell anybody who wants to pursue a dream or a desire that others might question?
Well, if it's important to you and if it's something you really enjoy doing every day, it really wouldn't matter what anybody else has to say about it. And I don't believe you should let people, distract you from your goals and ambitions, especially if they're not people you would ask advice from in the first place. I think finding something you love to do on a regular basis and making a profession out of it is one of the most important thing a young person can do. That way you never work a day in your life and you feel like you're making a difference in other people's lives and in something that gives you great joy and makes it a lot easier to get up and get to the office at 5:30 every day.
Well, Coach, thanks again for joining us. Any last words for Andrea?
Keep working hard. Congratulations on your success. Can't wait to see what you're going to do in the future.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
That's UNE head football coach Mike Lichten. Andy, what's next for you professionally, and where do you hope to get to?
So I want to improve as a scout, and hopefully in a few years, I'll get an area and become an area scout. But right now, I'm excited to be working with an amazing staff and who are preparing me and refining my scouting skills. I'm not one to look too far ahead in the future because then I'll lose where I am. I'm just looking one step ahead. I just want to keep improving, keep doing everything, keep being a sponge and absorbing all the information that everybody's giving me. So hopefully in a few years, get out on the road, but right now I'm just learning how to become the best scout I can be.
That sounds great. Now, obviously we've got a nice audience out there, folks that I'm sure are interested in pursuing a similar career path. What would you tell anybody who wants to get into sports, especially those who aren't perceived as the traditional candidate for a position?
Embrace being different. So right now we are at an amazing time in the professional stages where companies, organizations, teams are looking for people who don't fit in the box. They now see the value in hiring those who have a different point of view, who have different backgrounds, who have non-traditional ideas. So when we're in scouting meetings, our GM does not want to hear the same thing. Yeah, exactly what was already said. He wants to hear something different. He wants to hear all ideas, different points of view. And right now, it's time to take advantage of it. So it's an amazing time to be starting your professional career.
Following up on that, we heard from some great women earlier in the video. We've seen Major League Baseball now has women in uniform on their coaching staffs. In the NBA, Becky Hammon, in my opinion, is someone who's earned an opportunity to be an NBA head coach. Even in the CCC, we have several women who are coaching men's teams. When do you think we'll see a woman get that opportunity in a major professional sport?
I think soon. Women have roles in sports, but that's relatively new. But just like everybody else, we have to climb the ranks. It'll happen, and I think it'll happen a lot sooner than we think. We're starting at the bottom. We all have our jobs, and we're going to keep advancing. So I'm excited to see everybody continuing to do their jobs and be successful at what they're doing.
And just thinking about yourself, I mean, we've talked about, being a trailblazer. We've talked about, other women that are doing outstanding jobs. Who is your role model? And what's the most important lesson that you've learned from that individual?
So Coach Lichten obviously has been an amazing role model to me. Everyone who I've worked with has taken the time to help develop me. But going back to the reason why I started liking football and why I fell in love with the game would be my dad. I started watching football because I wanted to sit on the couch with him. Sundays became my favorite day of the week because he loved Sundays. He would be screaming at the TV. I didn't know what he was screaming at, so I would just start screaming at the TV. And then finally, I started asking questions to him, and we would talk football. And then my competitive self, I had to know more than him. So then I started researching, reading, listening to ESPN, Sports Center, Good Morning Football, all that, just so I could know more than him. So he definitely drove my love for football and made me obsessed with the game. So it's all thanks to him. I just looked forward to spending time with him every Sunday.
Yeah. And to follow up on that, if you watch a game now, can you watch a game as a fan, or are you watching it as a scout or somebody trying to break down what you're seeing?
I found I cannot go to a restaurant and watch the game if we're playing, just because I know too many things. And then, but yeah, I'll be like, oh, he missed the block, or he didn't. Oh, but yeah, he got beat on the edge. Like, but I mean, I try to make myself as a fan, but just knowing these guys, having relationships with the players, it's definitely on a whole new level. But I try to stay as calm as possible during games.
Yeah. Who was your favorite player growing up, and who's your favorite player now?
Oh God. Growing up would probably be Gronk. He's actually from Buffalo, so that's cool. And then my favorite player now, oh God, I can't, if they ever see this video, I love them all equally.
Very good. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Let's check in with Doug, because I think he has some questions from the audience.
Yeah, and thanks again for everybody that submitted questions. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Andy, feel free to send them in the chat. They'll come to me privately, and I'll make sure that they get asked. So one question that we had come in was regarding being part of an NFL organization. Did you, like, was this anything that was ever even in like the back of your mind? And if it wasn't the NFL, would you have considered working in another professional sport league like that, MLB, NHL, NBA, something like that?
Yeah, so when I came in as a freshman, and I was an AT major, I wanted to work in the NFL. I would see trainers come out on the field during injury timeouts, and I would picture myself trying to carry offensive linemen off the field and wondering how the hell I was going to do that. And then when I switched over to my nutrition track, I wanted to be a sports nutritionist. So then my dream became, I want to work with D1 athletes who want to go pro, or I want to work with pro athletes within the organizations. So NFL has definitely always been my dream. MLB would be an easier transition just because of my softball background, but it definitely was always the NFL. Even through my 3 major changes, the ultimate goal was always the same.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear how that could change dynamically. You always had like that end goal, but the role that you would play in that in the NFL would change based on what we were studying. You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when we were talking about the forum, but one person asked, do you have any tips or advice for somebody trying to network and get their way into scouting? How do you get into scouting? Do you have any advice or tips on what somebody could do to follow that avenue?
Yeah, connect with anybody, learn the sport inside and out. You can scouting, so you can use me now. I'm a part of everybody on here. I'm part of all your networks now. Scouting is you can learn, anybody can learn how to scout. It's just putting the time into staring at a screen, watching it, all the players, rewinding it. It takes a long time. So trying to get into this, connect with anybody you can think of. Even if you contact anybody and just say, hey, my name is so-and-so, this is my major, this is my career goals, I would love to have a discussion with you to talk about how you got to where you are. Everybody wants to help people because we've all been in that position wanting to break in. So it's just taking that step and contacting people, writing people letters, trying to get noticed, and keep up with it. Don't just do it once. Keep up with it, stay in contact with people, and it'll pay off, because that one person who you're contacting, they know somebody, and then they know somebody, or they know an opening that might be happening. So keeping up with contacts is really important.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point that right now you have become a contact for everybody that's on this panel. How could they get in touch with you if they need to? What's the best way to reach you? They need to communicate.
Yeah, find me social media, LinkedIn, message me anyway, and I will get in contact with you. I want to be somebody who people can connect with. And because I never had anybody on the inside, I was going in blind and just taking a shot in the dark. So I want to help people. If I don't know the answer, I'll figure it out, or I'll connect you with somebody who does. So use me, please. And I will be a resource that you can now use.
That's great. And so this question actually came from Kurt Smythe at UNE. So he wanted me to make sure that he lets you know that everybody at UNE is extremely proud of you before I ask the question. What are your next steps? What are your long-term career aspirations? Do you want to continue working in football? Do you want to explore other avenues? Is scouting the path, or do you want to work in the department in some other way? What's the long-term goals for you?
Yeah, so the NFL is definitely my end goal. Being a part of the draft and seeing the guys who last year we were watching their summer film, and then we went to their school calls, we saw them at the All-Star games, combine, and then we drafted them. Just seeing that transition, it's amazing. I want to stay in scouting. I want to stay on the college side. Like seeing our 7th round pick of this year, he had his first career start on Sunday, and he made a game momentum changing interception. Seeing our rookie kicker score all of our points last game, our rookie wide receiver killing it out there. It really puts things in perspective, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So this is definitely what I want to do. And being a part of the draft and seeing the draft process, being on the phone when we're calling them, hearing a guy cry because he figured out, well, he just learned that his life is going to change forever. And then as soon as he hung up the phone, we saw a video of him outside running routes. It's those things that make me absolutely love what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. I'm sure, I know we have a lot of people from UNE on this call, and I'm sure they're feeling the same way watching you out there as well. So this is kind of not really NFL or football related, but we do have some other student athletes here that probably are looking for advice from you as a student athlete. How did you feel balancing softball and schoolwork, and how did you get around all of that?
Yeah. So at one point in the fall, I have my softball season. We have probably have like 4 weeks. I'm working with the football team, and I'm a full student. So my day I would go to class. In between classes, I would work in the football office, and then I would go to class again. I would come back from class, work in the football office, go to football's practice, run in, do film, and then run out to my practice. And then we had night practice for softball. So at 8 p.m. until 10. So after 10, I would run back and have to do my homework. It's prioritizing, and it's going to pay off. Employers love hiring athletes because we're coachable. We know how to manage stress well, and we know how to prioritize. So it's prioritizing and using stress to your advantage and just sticking to your goals. Like, you'll be fine. You'll still have time to hang out with your friends. It's just getting through those times, and it's going to pay off. Trust me.
And kind of going off that, with regards to your playing days, obviously we all make mistakes, and sometimes those are hard to deal with. Do you have any advice on getting over those mistakes when you make them on the field, in the classroom, in any scenario?
5-second memory. Accept what you did. It's not gonna kill you, and just move on. Use it to drive you. I used to get absolutely one mistake and I would get so mad, but you have to learn how to funnel that and use it productively. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes here all the time. It's just learning from those mistakes and making sure those mistakes don't become habits. But I mean, you can ask anybody here. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. We're all here to learn. We're all here to do a job, and just learning from it, but having that 5-second memory, and then it's gone. Get over it, move on. You did it. You learned from it. Now you're on to something new.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think we just have one more question here. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat. But looking back at your time at UNE, do you have a favorite memory from your playing days or your time at UNE in general?
Oh man. My favorite time of year. I mean, there's so many. Oh, I know. For softball, we had a fundraiser where with the duck toss, so the rubber ducky toss, and we raised money for our softball trip. So we would sell these rubber duckies. We had so many, it had to be like 1,000 of them during a hockey game, and people would buy them. And then probably, I think it was at the end of the third period, we put a dot in the middle and everybody had to throw the ducks. And it was just so much fun to be on the ice watching all the ducks being thrown and all that. That was a great memory. But also, you know, making it to the championship my senior year, we didn't win it all, but that was a great memory. Playing the first time on our permanent field now, amazing memory. Like there's so many memories at UNE. I can't even pick one. Just being with my friends. You know, I still talk to everybody who I'm friends with now. I'll talk to them for obviously forever. So it was just a great time. I love UNE.
Andy, you've given us some wonderful information, some great stories, some great advice. Any parting thoughts, any parting comments, things that maybe we haven't gotten to, or you know, something else that you might want to share with everybody that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people are told us all the time, you don't have to have your life figured out. You can figure it out as you go and as opportunities come about. Never say no to an opportunity, because it could be a resume builder. It's going to make you more well-rounded, and potentially you could love it. Also, contact me, use me as a resource. I'm here to help. I never had anybody, like I said, so don't let a moment pass you by. Don't let an opportunity pass you by, and stay in the moment. Love what you're doing right now and have fun.
Andrea, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. I enjoyed watching you play in the CCC. I always like watching the Nor'easter brand of softball during your playing days, and I'm extremely grateful that you let us spend some time with you tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Go Bills.
Thanks again, Andy, and thank you to everyone for joining us. We will archive this session on the CCC website and invite folks in the audience to watch it again or share with your friends. We've got some other great programs that will be coming up throughout the rest of the semester, so be on the lookout for those. And thanks again for being here. Have a great night, everyone.